you to our presentation today on X3 for manufacturing. And we are recording this event, so I'd like to let the people doing that we're going to go ahead and start the recording. So we're going to talk about X3 in manufacturing. We have about an hour and a half today, and I'll probably take about an hour and 15 minutes, and then we'll leave the maybe 15, 20 minutes for questions at the end. Before we dive into the demo, though, there are some things I'd like to discuss about Sage in general. First of all, for those who don't know Sage, may be surprised to know that we are the largest software vendor for the small to medium-sized businesses in the United States. And if you think about it, that's a very large market demographic. So, of course, there's a lot of companies there, and we happen to have a lot of products that fit into that space. And also, if you're not familiar with Sage, you might be surprised to also know we've been around for over 30 years. And we have over 6.3, over 6 million customers, and our revenue last year worldwide was $2.2 billion. So we're, we've been around for a long time. We're very substantial, and we're doing pretty well financially as well. So when we talk about the mid-market, what are we talking about? And as you can see here, there's kind of a pyramid on how we segregate the markets. The small businesses, which are maybe companies employing, 20, 30 users down at the bottom right in here. And then there's the very large customers, which you would consider maybe the Fortune 1000, maybe the Fortune, 1500, something of that nature that's up here. And then really everything else is mid-market. And there's some uniqueness to the mid-market. They tend to have to be scalable because they usually start, with a smaller number of employees, but maybe with a large number of products, and then as they grow, they simplify their business, but at the same time they add more employees. So they usually do have complex processes. They usually have a limited IT resources. A lot of times they're international in scope. And they're looking for a solution that will cover all of their objectives, but they also limit it on the budget. They're, as most companies are today, they have budget restrictions, and this is great for Sage products, but particularly X3, because we tend to satisfy most of those requirements in the mid-market. X3 is a very functionally rich system, encompassing, and this is just a very brief chart, something that will allow me to discuss all the different functionalities that we have. But you can see going around the wheel here that we cover everything, what I like to say, quote to cash and procure to pay, and and everything in between, all the different functionalities. From purchasing to sales to manufacturing and so forth. When we're talking about manufacturing, what are we looking at? And we're very strong in discrete and process manufacturing. So, for those who are trying to, who maybe don't know the difference between discrete and process, if you think about if you're manufacturing a product that you bend, cut, weld, paint, and assemble, that's discrete. And then if you're let's say process, a good example of that's in food manufacturing, where you're stirring, baking, mixing, broiling, cooking for some period of time, and doing things like that. That's usually process. Same thing for chemical, where you might be mixing up a batch and then filling bottles or something of that nature. So we fit both types of industries very well. As well as the distribution business and services. We have functionality that allows us to do help in the service industry as well. As you can see here, here are the topics, or the applications that we have the support, as well as our technology that sits at the core that helps fulfill most companies' objectives. And just a little briefly on the technology, something what you need to know about X3 is that we are a web-enabled application. You use a browser to access our system. So it makes deployment easier and usually less expensive as well. Now, X3 is I like to say, a multi-everything application, multi-company, multi-language, multi-site, multi-currency. And that's all within one database. So if your processes or your business takes you across companies requiring multiple legislations and multiple taxing authorities, X3 is going to be very well suited for your industry because we can handle all that. Today we're accessible in 55 countries, 14 legislations, and 10 languages. The languages aren't that limiting because we also have languages supported maybe by local resellers in smaller markets. We do have enhancements to the product through our network of independent software vendors. We have partnerships with them. So there is other functionality that actually is being rounded out or enhanced through our ISV partnerships. But then there are also enhancements that Sage provides ourselves. For example, Sage Sales Tax is a great example of that. It's always burdensome to maintain if you're selling in a kind of a retail channel where you're trying to collect taxes across multiple states and cities and taxing authorities. It's hard to maintain manually. You can subscribe to Sage Sales Tax and we'll take care of all that for you. As well as human resources and payroll. Sage has been known for a number of years of being best of breed in that market space, and that's no different with X3. That same capability is integrated with X3 as well. As well as a minute ago I talked about the service industry, and usually in that industry you have projects and you need to maintain costing and sales and report time against project tasks, and we have that capability as well through our project and job costing capability. But today, what we're going to focus on is manufacturing with a little bit of a couple of other things, but basically we're going to talk just about manufacturing. I did say that we are an international or a global application, global system, and this just kind of gives you an idea of where we are currently have partnerships or direct capabilities in these countries across the globe there. Just a very, very small list of who's using our software today. You may or may not recognize some of these companies, but we are very scalable. So think of a company with 50 employees that might be using our software or less, maybe 30 employees, and we have companies that are thousands of employees as well. So and they're using the same product up and down that scale. So we're very scalable in our capabilities. All right, so let's go on to the presentation. And before we dive into the features of X3 manufacturing, what I'd like to do is review with you a few functions of X3 that form the foundation of our system that are important to know because they enhance the functionality of manufacturing in X3. So if you think about it, today there are two major types of users for an ERP system: consumers of information and creators of information. So let's start off with a review of how a consumer of information would use our system. First of all, you're looking at my personal portal, and I'll emphasize personal. X3 is a very personal experience. The number of tabs that you see across the top here, what is displayed on the tabs, is all based on how I want to interact with the system. This tab that I call Dashboard is configured with information that I want to see on a daily basis. And as you can see, and let's talk about what you're looking here. So think about, again, I mentioned earlier that we are a web-enabled application and you use a browser. So think of a web page. And this is my personal web page that I'm using to access my ERP applications. And what you see on this tab here called Dashboard are these blocks of information. And we call those blocks gadgets. And gadgets can be configured to hold different types of information or data. In this case, I'm looking at a graph that shows sales by territory. All right, or here, here's one that since I'm in a manufacturing environment and maybe I'm, and we're going to do today, we're going to do kind of a food example, but I've been having an issue with salinity, and so our QC labs, we're doing test sampling on all the product that's being produced. So I'm going to personally watch our salinity parameters as they're being recorded, just something I want to monitor, as well as on this graph, on-time work order completion. You can't ship on time unless you manufacture on time. So I want to monitor our on-time performance. So those are the three graphs I've got going here. And what's unique about the graphs is that, first of all, we're able to present this information to you in real time. This is not a data warehouse. And we're able to do that because X3 has a built-in business intelligence capability that we happen to call business statistics. And so you're able to do things such as this. I'm going to make this a little bit larger so that we can all see it. So here's sales by territory by sales dollar amount. Well, since it is kind of a BI tool, or it is a BI tool, we can have multiple dimensions to what we're looking at. So I can look at it by dollars or by quantity shipped, number of actual line items that were on the order, or by margin. So if I click on any one of those, the graph changes slightly. Also, usually when you're looking at business intelligence, you do get an answer, in this case, what territory is selling the most, but you usually end up with another question. Like, for example, I wonder who, in this case, who's the West Coast selling to? So if I happen to click on the graph and zoom down, it'll actually drive me down to the customers now that we're selling to. And you can create these to drill down even further, maybe the products I'm selling by customer, something of that nature. So they're very easy to create these charts and graphs. Matter of fact, with our standard edition option, there's over 55 of these graphs that are delivered out of the box. This happens to be one of them right here. Now, I did mention that our application is built on top of a business intelligence engine. So not only can I look at graphs, but I can query the data as well. So let me draw your attention to this gadget. And in this gadget, I've created myself a little menu. Things that I wanted to monitor, like, current work orders, completed work orders, maybe, costs, those kind of things. But one is sales analysis because, from a manufacturing standpoint, probably need to see what's coming down the pike, so that we can make sure we have accurate forecast or enough production to be able to deliver on time. So I'm going to click on my sales analysis button. And right now I'm looking at this by sales rep. I don't really care about that. What I really care about is maybe by product family. So I'm going to reorient our cube. What I'm looking at here is a data cube. So I'm going to look at it by product family, by product, and then, I don't know, maybe by customer. So that's going to be my first three criteria. So we'll go ahead and do that. As a matter of fact, let's just do something here real quick. I got some dates here I got saved, so I'm just going to recall those. All righty. Okay, so now there's my cube, and so I've reoriented it to look at it by product family, so bicycles, chemicals, so forth and so forth. You can see that we sell a lot of wagons. So I'm going to drill down now from here, and I'm going to drill down to the lower level. So from here I can see exactly what wagons that we're selling, and you can see that we're selling a lot of red wagons and some yellow wagons. I kind of like graphs, so I'm going to look at this graphically. So I'm just going to click on our little graph button here, and you can see I'm looking at all these different criteria on the graph at one time. I'm just going to turn some of these off, because maybe I'm just interested in the dollar amounts to kind of give me a sense of scale. So I'm looking at it from this year and last year. Of course, this year just started maybe. Well, so I didn't actually sell much money wagons in 2012, but did sell a lot of wagons in 2011. Hopefully 2013 will mirror that. And you can see here I can also look at it with quantities. So let's take off the dollars and look at the quantities that have been delivered over that period of time. So it just kind of gives you an idea of how our querying tools, our business statistic tool or business intelligence tools work in X3. It's very, very quick to use, very simple to use, and a lot of this type of information is already set up out of the box, so you don't actually have to create these. But if you did, it's very easy to do as well. Looking further at the dashboard, you can see I can also place what we call requesters or queries right on my dashboard as well. So even though I am shipping on time, I am considered about any late work orders, so I'm looking at those specifically. And what's really neat, let's say this work order 139 here, if I wanted to go take a look at that work order, in some ERP systems I would have to write down, work order 139 on a piece of paper, go to a menu, go to work order inquiry or work orders, key that work order number in. It's 5 or 6 or 7 clicks. With X3, all I need to do is just click on that work order ID, and from my dashboard, takes me directly to that work order. So if I needed to look at it, I could look at the status to see what's been completed. If there's any messages that are saying, what's holding it up, those kind of things. So here's the products, the components, and the operations. Also, today, information external to your company can be just as important as information that's internal to your company. So I'm interested in what's going on in the business world. I don't want to keep flipping over to my websites. Could certainly do that or have it coming to my smartphone. But right on my dashboard, I'm subscribing to the RSS feed from a business website so I can see exactly what's going on. And here's something to do about coal exports. If I'm interested in looking at the details of that right from my dashboard, I can click directly on that link, and it will take me to the website, so I can further read that article if I need to do that. Again, you can very simple that you can set up subscription to other websites. Okay. All right, so this is a great tool for those companies that are, or for those users of an ERP system that is a consumer of information. Let's say though that I'm a creator of information, and usually creators of information are guided by a set of procedures and processes, and these might be in the form of a flow chart, printed on paper or stored in a book somewhere. With X3, though, you're able to take the processes and place them directly on your personal portal. So what I'm talking about is if you're thinking of a flow chart or procedure that you have written, particularly if you're ISO certified, right? You've got these your processes and how to use your system documented somewhere. Well, you can take that documentation and place it directly on the personal portal. So again, here's a gadget. That's all, same gadgets I showed you that I had created for holding information. Here's a gadget that's holding what we call a visual process. Now this is a visual process I created for today because we're going to talk mainly about this area in here. This kind of gives you a sense of scale of what a business does, right? From quote to cash and procure to pay. So from CRM all the way to accounts receivable, and then from creating demand with sales forecast or actual demand, and then generating MRP and purchasing all the way to accounts payable. So this could be your business. Well, these are more than just a pretty picture. It's more than just documentation. This is actually how you navigate within the system. So if I click on this icon here, let's call this one products, which would be the item master. I click on that, and it actually takes me to the item master. Now these images here, these are the ones, we have a number of these icons or images that are out of the box, but you can also create your own images. You're going to see me do that here in a little while, where I've created some images and created a process chart or a visual process specifically for today. So kind of let your imagination run wild. That's what I do with these visual processes. So this is, this might be one where, again, that might be the overview of your business. But we also have a number of these visual processes that are already pre-defined out of the box. So, for example, not to make this into an accounting presentation today, God forbid, but this is an example of an accounts receivable visual process or accounts payable visual process. And again, there's a number of these already pre-configured out of the box that you can just start using, close to 200 of them. So pretty nifty. Again, these little icons can be configured to access actual forms in the software, website data, queries, charts and graphs that you already saw me on the dashboard, execute jobs. They're very very flexible in what they can do. So as you can tell, these visual processes are real-time, and they're process maps that facilitate quicker user education, and they also facilitate faster adoption of the system because you don't have to teach people menus. You can create a visual process specific to their needs. And again, as I mentioned earlier, it's a great tool for documenting ISO 9000 processes. Now you're probably asking yourself, does X-Ray actually have menus? Of course we do. This is our menu system here. We call it a browser. Very simple, very similar to a browser in Windows. But what I want to draw your attention to is the favorites menu. That is important because wherever I go in the software, my favorites menu follows me. So let's say, for example, I'm going to go to manufacturing and let's say technical data, work center. Let's just add work centers. So I'm going to add work centers to my personal menu, to my favorites menu. There it is. Now when I go to my visual process, draw your attention to this gold star. That gold star accesses my favorites menu. So there's work centers. So I'm 2 clicks away from work centers while I'm on my visual process. But if I go to a form now, let's go back to the item master. There's the gold star. Click it. Work centers. Open up work centers. So I'm never more than 2 or 3 clicks away from that. From my favorite information. It could be forms, could be queries, could be reports, could be anything you want. It's just your collection of your favorite applications in X3. X3 is a roles-based application, which a lot of people kind of, interpret to being menu security or field security or form security, and that's true. I mean that's basically what what roles does. But if you think about the role of the users in a business, and if I can take that role and I can interpret that in my software so that they are they're managed by the role, and not only what they're able to access, but the information they're able to see or the information they're able to use is controlled by that role as well. Well, that's how X3 works. And a great example of this, here's an example of a form that has unrestricted access. So I just want to draw your attention to this first tab and show you all of the fields that I'm able to view. And then on this list here, and I'm going to explain a little bit here in a second, but on this list here, you can see that I'm looking at every record for every company. All right, so company 10, company 20, and so forth. Well, let's say now that my role is a little more restrictive. So if I go into a form that has a more restricted role, you can see that now the tab is only showing me 2 fields. So all those other fields have been eliminated if this was my role. And on the list on the left, I'm only able to view information for company 20. Again, this is just a very small example of what roles can do. You could actually craft individual roles. We have a number of these already predefined as well. But you could, for example, have customers come into the system, give them a password. Again, you're web enabled. They can come in and look at information just very specific to them. While we're here on this form, I just want to kind of explain a couple of things. While we're here, X3 has a very consistent user interface. So all of our forms look the same, and that's great for education and early adoption of the software. But I just need to kind of guide you around a little bit so that you don't get lost today where we're at. First of all, we have an address, so you always know where I'm at. Right now, I'm in invoices, and so if I pop into a form and if it's not immediate, if you're not immediately aware of what form I'm in, look at the address. That will tell you which form I'm in. All the forms always have a header and detail on the left. On the left, there's usually tabs. Oh, got to pick something. There's usually tabs that guide you for the detailed information. Validations on the bottom with button, save, create, all that kind of stuff. But on the left is the information you're trying to retrieve relative to that form. And really, how I want you to think about this is a file drawer. So you're going to see this a lot today. And I'm sorry, a file cabinet in this case. So think of a file cabinet with multiple drawers. So here you see a drawer that has invoices, a drawer that says last read, select shipments, service contracts, requirements, selection, and so forth. So you can have as many drawers as you want. Again, personalized application. A lot of our applications already have lots of drawers. The drawers can be used for filtering, for sorting, those kind of things. So as you see me go through the software today and you get a little confused, remember addresses and drawers. All right. A couple of things I also want to address pretty quickly. One is in today's world of ERP, you have to play nice with Microsoft Office, and we certainly do that. We integrate with, of course, Excel, Word, and Outlook. So we're not going to talk about CRM today, but if we did, one of the questions would be, do you integrate with Outlook? Absolutely. Can we do mail merges and those kind of things with Word? Absolutely. And can we output information to Excel? Certainly. Anytime you see a grid of information in X3, like you're seeing here, this grid, and I don't care where the grid is, anytime you see a grid, you can take that grid and output it directly to Excel. That message is brought to you by Microsoft. So we click the button, and just that quickly, I took whatever was on the screen in that grid and outputted it directly to Excel. Now remember, I said that you can personalize how you want to see information in the software. I do work for Sage. I am partial to green, but if you don't like green and yellow, you can change the colors. You can change the headings. You can change what columns. You can change the type of spreadsheet. Do I want a pivot table? Do I want other columns? So you have all that control with X3 when you do an export. The last kind of what I call a foundation topic that I want to talk about is workflow. And workflow is extremely important to an ERP system because really this is what this is what makes your life easier. You've always wanted, you want your ERP system to work for you like your smartphone does today, right? I mean, you're carrying around your smartphone, and I just a couple hours ago got a message on my iPhone saying that Andy Reid was hired by Kansas City. Came right to the iPhone. It was an alert. Boy, wouldn't it be nice if our ERP system could do the same thing? Well, with X3 we can, and we do it with workflow. Specifically, the workflow engine enables you to trigger an event, initiate processing, send an email, etc., based on user actions such as printing, creating new records, editing, deleting data, or based on the result of a database inquiry. So that's basically everything that's going to happen within a system, right? You can trigger the dispatch of emails, allowing recipients to take action by simply clicking on the embedded option buttons inside the email, or by returning in one click to the ERP system that triggered the message. I'm actually going to show that to you here in a second. Workflow simplifies your workload by enabling execution of predefined actions based on conditions, exceptions, automatically monitored by the workflow engine. It also provides users with work schedules based on customized processes or workflow circuits. Now, what I'm talking about there is we have calendaring in X3. Since we have a CRM system, we have multiple calendars. So think a little bit about if it'd be kind of nice, if my calendar was populated based on events in the software. Let's say in collections, I want my calls automatically created in CRM, collection calls based on who's past due by a certain number of days. Well, we certainly can do that with X3 workflow. And of course, you can trigger workflow circuits based on batch processes, such like imports and exports. And that's exactly what we're going to do. So how I'm going to show this to you is, let's pretend like I've got a flat file, which let's don't pretend, I actually do have a flat file sitting out there, and I'm going to import the file. And the file happens to be a sales order. And when I import it, I want a couple of things to happen. One, I want workflow to thank the customer for placing an order with us. Isn't that kind of nice to be able to do that? And I want a workflow to alert the customer service manager that an order has been imported. So let's do those two things. So we're going to import the order. Actually, workflow could have done this automatically, but when you're in a demo, it's always better to press the button. All right, and all of a sudden, you can see I've already received a couple of emails. So first of all, let's pretend like I'm the customer. And here is an example of the email that I've returned to the customer saying, thank you for your order. Right, now again, you kind of let your imagination roam. I know we probably have more manufacturing people on the call today, so think about what I could do with manufacturing, sending alerts. There's a QC condition that's out of control, or work order that didn't get created or didn't get completed in time. So think about those kind of things. But here's where we are communicating to our customer. And by the way, when we ship it, we're going to send another email as well. And then let's say I'm the customer service manager, and I also received an email that's saying that a new order's been imported. By the way, if you want to look at the order, let's click here. So if I click. And then I'm going to sign in. Now you're thinking it's just all doing is signing me directly into X3, which it is, but it's bypassing all the menus, bypassing all the process flows, and taking me directly to the sales order. All right. Now again, I'm just using sales orders as an example, so kind of let your imagination roam here, what you would want with, doing these kind of things with workflow. But that's kind of nifty, particularly if I'm traveling. Let's say I'm at an airport or something, and I want to be alerted. Okay, so let's pop in and start talking a little bit about manufacturing. First of all, the cornerstone of anything that you manufacture, be it processed or discrete, is going to be it's going to be around your product data management capabilities. So if we go take a look at X3 and see that, just that you would expect from a manufacturing system, we have an item master, we have bills of material, we have work centers, routings, we have cost. Now with X3, our costs are very expansive. You have multiple options on how you want to do your costing. So you can see here that not only do we have multiple breakouts, we segregate costs by material, machine, labor, subcontract, overhead. Overhead can be on labor as well as on movement, on indirect. We also have costing families. So that if you want to know what component of your costs, if you want to divide it into various different families, like packaging components, here I kind of do demos for different types of industries, so you see different things here. But think about your industry and how you might want to see your costs. You can certainly do that. Now, from a costing capability, our costs can be based on standard. Matter of fact, we allow you to have multiple standard costs. You have your standard costs that you're using for production, but then you can have standard costs that you can play with and simulate and work with during the year before you do your cost roll-up. So that's kind of nice. We give you some sandboxes to play with standard costs. But we also have last cost, we have average cost, we have average lot cost, we have FIFO cost, as well as FIFO cost. So you have, as well as LIFO. So FIFO, LIFO, and FIFO. So you have lots of different options for your costing methodologies with X3. But saying that, other tools you might be looking at for product data management would be all of your mass change capability, mass replace, mass remove, items, bills of material, routings. We have all that capability. As well as X3 is a very open system, so that if you have a CAD, if you have some sort of CAD capability, we can create the import mechanisms to import files from a CAD system and update the product data information as well. A great way of looking at all this in one screen is with our BOM Viewer. So let's go pull up a product here. All right. So what we call this is our production slip. It's really the operations and the items all mixed, all combined on one screen. And if I look at it from a multi-level standpoint, and again, we're kind of doing food today. We're going to be actually concentrated on bean dip. that probably tells you where I worked in my teens and early 20s. Done it. So anyway, here's our end item product. Here's a subassembly. That happens to be the spice pack. The spice pack's made up of these different different items in different weights, different unit of measures. We go to our first operation, which is blending in a kettle. Then we're going to add pinto beans, jalapenos, vinegar, and lard. And then we're going to do, actually that's blending for the spice pack and then blending for the product, and then we're going to go to the fillers and then the case packers. And here you can see the rates. Now what's neat is I can click on any one of these. This allows me to view various different information about this. In this case it would be a formula, but it could be a bill of material or a recipe. This is a recipe, but it could be a formula or a bill of material. So let's take a look at jalapenos. And from here I can go directly to the product or the item master. And so here's my product master for jalapenos. All right, and remember I said we have multiple units of measure. So here I'm stocking it in pounds, but I'm receiving bags of jalapenos. 25, looks like 25-pound bags. Okay, and we can have multiple pack units. We are a multi-site application. So I can have multiple site records, and that's important because your cost and your planning rules, your lead times can be different for each of your different manufacturing facilities. But I can have one product record, but multiple product site records. Okay. Another thing we can do is look at the component where used. Where else do I use the jalapenos? It just shows you all the various different other products that use them. And let's see how many of these do we have in stock. So I'm going to go to stock by site, and in my primary site I happen to have available, my on hand is 564 pounds, but available is 468 because we've netted against that. I wonder what I have in other sites. So I'm going to clear our site and look at all my other sites. So in Houston we have 450 pounds, and in Austin we have 700 pounds, and all those are available. I wonder what's going on with Dallas. So I'm going to take a look at detailed stock. And you can see right off the bat here that I happen to have 212 pounds that are good. And I happen to have some that are highlighted in red. Now, those could be expired lots, which they are nearing expiration. So it's giving me a warning. And since we are using lot control, which is a feature of X3, if you want to use it or you're in an industry that requires it, we have a very extensive lot control feature. I can do traceability as well. So from this screen, I'm going to go right into traceability and see that lot of product, it was actually brought in on a miscellaneous receipt of 300 pounds, but we issued 96 pounds to this work order. We brought in another 300 pounds, which is kind of interesting. Then we used 96 pounds on that work order. And if I happen to want to go take a look at any of those documents, I can certainly right-click and go directly to that document as well. So now we're in the work order, and this, so I can take a look at the work order again, see what's going on with it. So I went through that exercise for a couple of reasons. One, to kind of show you all the different features that we have with X3 as it pertains to the lots and sub-assemblies and all that kind of stuff. But I also went through it to show you how information is tied together with X3 and how easy it is to get to it. Most of the time, it really is just we call it tunneling. A lot of people call it drilling down, but we can tunnel to other information. A lot of the underlying detail is tied to the summary. So in this case, with jalapenos, I can branch out and see lots of different things. So a very easy system. They're a very easy system to use. All right, so now that we have our in this case our recipe ready to go, all right, we need to do a little manufacturing, or and really when you talk about manufacturing, now that we have our in this case our recipe ready to go. All right, we need to do a little manufacturing. Or and really when you talk about manufacturing, we have demand in the system, and we need to satisfy the demand. And so how does demand get placed on the system? Well, it gets placed a couple different ways. One is through sales orders, and as a matter of fact, I didn't show you a minute ago that sales order that we imported. I just showed you the emails, but here's actually the order that we imported. So the purchase order number, the sold to, and so forth. So so when I did the workflow demo and showed you the emails, I actually placed demand in the system for our product, our jalapeno bean dip. Okay. So that's one way of getting demand in the system, is actual demand. Another way is through forecasting. X3 has some great tools for managing forecast. So here you see I actually have our product, and I'm wanting 1,000, or in this case 100 units for our first week in January of product. Now I can actually go in and if I need to, just go ahead and place another demand for month 2, and say, well, we need something here, and we need something here, and keep doing this manually. I don't really want to do that. So let's just have the system calculate for us. So what I'm going to do is say, starting in February, and let's say going out to end of April, we're going to, week by week, forecast actually 100,000 units. All right. And so the system automatically did some level loading there, but just basically said, based on your total quantity, based on the number of days available in each one of those weeks, we're just going to level load across the week for your forecast. All right, and actually we can look at it graphically. So there you see it. That's fine. I'm not sure. That's maybe not the way we actually manufacture, though. Maybe we do it with some sort of seasonality. So let's recalculate, and actually let's go ahead and carry it all the way out to the end of the year. And let's put in a seasonality curve, because we can keep various different seasonality profiles, trend profiles in X3. Because there is, if you do happen to have a seasonal business, you don't want to manufacture more than you need. So by doing that, you can say, based on that trend profile, this is the actual way that I need to manufacture. And with bean dip, probably true. Maybe we need to have more bean dip ready for the March Madness for basketball, and then it kind of trails off and then starts gearing up for 4th of July, and then around Christmas our customers buy a lot of bean dip, so that's probably a good trend profile. All right, so if I save that, and then that's the way, that's the forecast that will be fed into X3, and so usually the next step is you run some sort of planning engine. X3 has a number of them. We have MRP, Material Requirements Planning, Master Production Scheduling, MPS, and also Statistical Reordering, which uses the EOQ and order point calculations to also generate requirements for demand. But we're just going to use good old-fashioned MRP. And it'll just take actually a couple of seconds here, running on my small little laptop. And that's it. Now, I know I made that look kind of simple. We put some demand in the system. We run MRP to generate our requirements. And you're wondering, well, do I have any control over MRP? You certainly do. There is, first of all, for the site, you notice that we have we can run MRP for each one of our sites, and that's important. I can actually load all the sites here and then run MRP. But let's say that I have one site that's a source of satisfies a requirement for another site. MRP will generate that requirement in that other site. We do, in other words, we do multi-site planning, which is kind of cool and very efficient when you're having to try to do all that stuff manually, like we used to in the older days. But what I want to show you is you do have a lot of capability in how you want to manage how MRP or MPS runs for a particular site. So you do have your buckets that you can set, your horizons you can set. What BOM am I going to run? Again, we have alternate bills of material, so I can have a planning bill, an engineering bill, those kind of things. So maybe I'm going to do a run just looking at the planning bill, not looking at the production bill. What does our weekly structure look like? And the reason we need to know that is because MRP can look at the lead times from the routings instead of just the lead time from the item master. So you can refine the actual requirement based on the lead time in the routing. What do we include? What do we not include? So these are your inclusions and exclusions here. And then we get into the actual MRP calculations. Ignore safety stock, ignore coverage, suggestion inside the firm horizon. Do we replace safety stock? Do we not replace? Do we not replace safety stock? What are we going to generate? Work orders, purchase orders, inter-site orders. I was talking about that. Subcontractor suggestions. We also have subcontracting capability within X3. And then these are your replanning rules, your delays. This also generates your messages, because as you know, with MRP, you want to work from your messages. So a lot of fine tuning to the system. It's just you just set it and forget it, but you can fine tune it to your instance, to your situation. So what we've done is generated requirements, or actually suggestions, and the first area that I want to show you is purchasing. Now, in my day, I would come in on Monday morning, and of course the line printer would be out of paper, and there would be this huge stack of paper after MRP ran saying, here are your suggestions. And you can, you go through the reports, and you'd support it, you'd sort it by planners and buyers and those things, and then they would take a look at it and run through and start highlighting their messages and working those messages. If you still want to do that, we can certainly do that for you, but I would suggest what you'd really want to work from is our workbenches. Now, so from a purchasing standpoint, and this is, buyer, planner, me right now, these are the things that X3 is telling me to purchase. All right, you can see some of them are on contracts. That's what that's telling me. So those are actually releases off a blanket. Past this date, so I can actually refine my dates, refine my product, refine by vendor. Okay, there's actually other capability with the criteria. So if I want to put any more filtering criteria in, I can certainly do that. If I want to work just my messages first, which are already there, I think on top they are, I can certainly do that. Now, MRP is assuming I want to buy all these. That's the reason there's check marks already by them. I don't really want to do that, so actually I'm just going to exclude all. And I'm going to say I do need some of those, and let's see here. Let's go ahead and buy some labels and cases. Now, I can accept those quantities, or I can override those quantities if I need to. Plus, I can right-click and go to our other products that the supplier offers. And if I want to add something from this list, in other words, I know they also, we need some bread cartons, so I could put in a quantity here if I need to do that. And this is really handy in the purchasing realm if you're trying to fill out a truck, if you're trying to do a minimum buy or something. But once I've got the items selected that I want to purchase, have them check marks, all I need to do is press the generate button, and X3 will actually create the POs for me. And this all went to the same supplier for these two products on this purchase order. So it's telling me what's going on. So if we actually go take a look at the purchase order, here it is. There's our two lines that we bought, our labels and our case label, our cases and labels. There's the price. Well, they're kind of expensive, aren't they? I bought a lot of them. Okay, so you don't have to write anything down on paper. You don't have to key anything in. It's just point and click. Now, you're probably asking yourself, do we have signature capabilities and those? Can we generate requisitions first? Absolutely. You can have signature requirements based on requisitions or based on purchase orders, and they can be multi-layered, and they can be circuited to different people based on certain parameters. So I can have signature approval on my purchasing documents. Receiving is just as simple. So let's say the PO goes out to the vendor. The vendor ships the product to us. So I go to my receiving screen. I go to my POs. I'm going to match up my receipt to my PO. I think that's it right there. So here are the two items, the label and the case. Again, I can change the quantities, and you can set tolerances as well, so that if the receiver falls within a certain tolerance of the purchase order, you can go ahead and accept it and close the PO out. Just that simple, point and click. All right, so that was quickly how we buy things after we've ran MRP with X3. Now let's talk a little bit about manufacturing. How do we actually going to, now that we have our product here, how do we plan and release work orders? Well, multiple ways. Just like we have with a purchasing workbench, we have a manufacturing workbench as well. So this is everything that X3 is actually asking me to manufacture. All right. And just like I showed you with purchasing, I have all sorts of filtering criteria so that, I can set it up by planner, by certain product groups, by by certain classifications, by date of release. Am I looking at MRP or MPS by site? So there are various different criterias. You can right-click and look at a bevy of information. Probably the most important one is, do I actually have all the components? Of course, I have to pick one. Let's go to this one. Do I actually have all of the components available prior to release? In this case, I don't. Projected balance is going to be negative. So I might want to rethink actually releasing that work order, or make a call to purchasing before I do that. And it's a simple thing to release work orders as well. So I can right click and do a plan and initiate and release individually from this screen if I want to, or we can actually launch them or release them all in batch based on certain criteria. Like, I know all the components are here, so let's go ahead and release, all work orders, for January 4th. So you could do things like that as well. All right. So once you have your work order released, or maybe you haven't released it yet, maybe you have to also think about your capacity constraints. X3 has capacity requirements planning capability as well. So let's go take a look at that. So here you're looking at my, my production site. So here are my two blending machines or kettles, my containers or my filler, and then my labeler and my case packer and so forth. This is the load in each one. This is a Gantt chart format. This is the work order. So if I want to click on the work order, I can certainly click on it and get all the details. The time required, well, a lot of time. Must be a big work order. The date to start, the date ending, the time start, the time ending, and so forth. The quantity. Now this is a suggestion, hasn't been released yet. All sorts of capability here to view, to look at this information in various different ways. I can look at it as a load graph based on time. If I like this look a little bit better, I can certainly do that. I can look at the statistics going across. Now, of course, we got various different ways of looking at it, as I said. And while I'm here, when I'm looking at the detail, I can actually go to the product as well. So if I need to look at the product master. So let's say I have a bottleneck. We have a number of ways of satisfying the bottleneck. First of all, let's kind of take a look at the details here. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I've got some issues here. They're past due, so I already know I've got some problems, and they're small little jobs. But the way we can clear bottlenecks, first of all, I have the capability of just clicking and dragging. So we can manually move. Well, say it won't allow me because it's dependent, because we have dependent and independent operations. There we go. I moved that one a little bit. So you can move. You can manually move. You can also do some sort of you can do constraint calculations as well, constraint analysis, and I can do that looking at our optimization, which is looking at the constraints, and we'll schedule around a constraint based on the workaround that you already have predefined in the system. So basically, it says if this work center is booked, move it to this other work center if it's open. So that's basically finite constraint, finite analysis. We also have infinite scheduling as well. You can see they look totally different because now I'm saying I got plenty of capability and plenty of time. So let's just go ahead and schedule it that way. So you can actually work with it. This is kind of a simulation that I'm running now. So you can look at it in various different ways, and then once you have the work orders designed where you want them, scheduled where you want them, then you can just say save it, and then that will update the times and dates on your work orders, and then you can go to release your work orders. So it's a good tool. And if the tool may be a little sophisticated for your installation, we also have other tools as well, what I like to call rough cut analysis, which basically gives you the information, in more of a grid format with a little bit of graphics capability. But I can take a look at it from a rough cut and say, okay, just move this work order or go into this work order and change that. So depending on your complexity, depending on your processes for scheduling, we probably have the tool to fit your needs. So we've done some demand. We've created MRP to generate requirements. We've released some work. We've done some capacity requirements planning. So let's actually now go into some shop floor control and actually do some things. Now, if you remember, I kind of said let your imagination run wild, because we can take various, we can create these gadgets, these visual processes, and use images. So in this case, I'm going to pretend like this is a replica of my actual shop floor. If I'm producing bean dip, I'm doing it in two kettles, because I've got my cook kettle that's going to feed my filler seamer, and then I should be cooking something in here as I'm loading from this one, so I never starve a line. And then from my filler seamer, it's going to the packer, and then from packing, it's going into stock. So a very simple manufacturing process. Let's take a look at and see what's going on. So if I click on my first kettle, you can see that I'm actually done. So I'm just holding product right now. I've completed all of my quantity. That's great. If we go into our filler, I am 250 units into finishing that, so I still have 750 units remaining to be filled. And if we go into, of course, from the filler, it goes directly to the packer, so what do I have left there? I still got 900 units remaining to be packed. So, but I'm about to starve the line because I don't really have anything, I don't have anything waiting here because I can only cook one thing at a time. And if I go into my second kettle, I don't have anything. So let's go ahead and release some work. So I'm going to go into release. And actually, here's a work order that's been planned. So let's go take a look at it. And since it's already planned, we had the foresight to know that we needed it. I'm just going to firm it up. And there we go. Now I want to notice that it's got an alternate routing. So I'm not going to my primary routing. I'm going to my alternate routing, because the alternate routing actually says start in kettle 2. So I don't have to manually do any scheduling or change the routing on the fly. I'm just selecting that second routing. So hopefully, if we go into kettle 2, you can see now I have 1,000 units that are ready to be manufactured, in this case cooked, and so we've just scheduled some work and released the work to that batch. And if I look at my other work centers, you can see now that they're now aware that there's a second order to be completed after they finish the first one. Okay. All right, so that's one thing on how to release, and and again, I just manufacturing when you get into the shop floor, there's various ways of doing things. This is just my view of how I would do something just for our presentation today. We have multiple ways of releasing work, scheduling work, and reporting work. So we get into shop floor control. How do we report back? Well, we can back flush, just report based on receipt entry of finished goods. That's one way. As a matter of fact, we can actually do what I call work orderless back flush. You actually don't need work orders. So if you're in a continuous manufacturing environment, you can certainly just do manufacturing that way, and then back flush the materials as you put goods into inventory. Or you can, or the 180-degree view of that is actually full-blown shop floor control, where I clock in, and then I clock into my setups and clock out of my setups. I clock into when I start the job and clock out when I start the job, and I actually don't back flush. I issue material to each job. We can certainly do all that as well. We can be that discreet. And then and if you want to do that, then how do we report? Well, some companies want to report on paper, and they certainly can do that. And then when then that paper gets returned to the office, and I want to key it into a form, have a clerk of some sorts keying it into a form. Well, we can certainly do that as well. So with here's an example of a time tracking screen, where this shows you all the operations. You can certainly bring up a form and fill out the quantity achieved and press OK, and you're done. And the time, of course, since this is time tracking. I can actually, where I'm doing time tracking, I can have all my transactions on one screen: my issues, my finished goods, and my time. So backflush all elements with one transaction. You can certainly do that. Or if you want to have that capability in the hands of the actual employees, let's say, let's do a run start transaction. So think of this: I'm an employee on the shop floor, and I scan my badge, and then scan my work order, and then scan the operation, and then that's it. I'm clocking directly onto the machine, and it's just verifying that I've done that. So you can certainly do that as well. And the transaction I just did, we can do it on what we call RF devices, or handheld barcoding devices. You don't need to be attached to a computer. You can do it wirelessly with radio frequency devices. So anyway, I just kind of very quickly gave you a lot of different options there. Just shows you how flexible, when we get to the shop floor, X3 really is. But what I'm going to do to finish out our little manufacturing here, I'm going to do a receipt entry. And I believe it wasn't 1,000 that was completed; it was 100, right? So we're just going to say it's 100. It's going to go into a quality control automatically, because we now need to do a QC test. X3 has very extensive quality control capability, and so with this product, I do want to do a sample on it. So we're going to go ahead and finish it off. All right, and now if I go check my stock, you can see I have well, actually, I guess I did it earlier. So I got one I did probably this morning for testing. But here's our second receipt of 100 of product into our finished goods location, actually our QC location. It's in QC hold. All right. So moving on. So the next step is our QC people go out, and we can actually do the sampling at operation as well. We can do it doing the manufacturing process. But let's say they've gone out to the finished goods. They pick up one case. They open up the case, or maybe 2 or 3 cases. Take some samples out, and they go back to their office, the QC office, and start doing their test. And they bring up X3, and they're going to see that they have a queue here of tests that need to be performed. The tests are automatically generated based on the transactions in X3. So here's the product that we just completed. So it's requiring a test. So I'm going to do my analysis and going to now report back to X3 what the results of those analysis are. So when it comes to salinity, we're going to say we're 0.8. And when it comes to pH, we're going to be 6.8. And then I'm going to verify that I did the botulinus intoxication test. And everything worked out just fine there. Okay, so I completed the test. And now I can say, well, what I sampled was 20. And my acceptable rejection size is 1, but we're going to be lucky in that we had no rejection. So there's no reason for rejection. And we're going to go ahead and release those 100 units that can now be shipped. Okay. And if I want to take a look at my tests, I could go back to my dashboard and look, or I can take a look at and say, wow, now I'm trending right good for my salinity if I want that, because here's my upper and lower control capability, so I'm doing just fine. I'm not out of control. All right. Now the next logical step is to ship, and I'm not actually going to go into detail on shipping, but just to kind of give you a glimpse of what you could do with X3 shipping, because that's kind of the next little step. But we're kind of conclude with manufacturing. But if we go into the shipping arena, this might be what my personal portal might look like if I'm the shipping manager. So I have my little menu with my shipping processes, my orders to ship. My picking tickets that are open right now, and the picking tickets are calling out a certain pallet pattern and how we're going to pack the pallet, because we can certainly do that. Here's stock that's in QC. You can see I still have one. So there's that one. I can't pack that yet because it's still in QC hold, but there's others that's released. There's my pallet pattern. So if I'm interested in knowing what other products I need to pack with that pallet or in that pattern, just gives me a list of them as well. And then what do I need to ship on a given day? Here's my calendar, my shipping calendar, and as I click on it, it shows me those orders, and of course I can click on them and take a look at those orders. All right. It's about 2:10. I probably breezed through some of this probably a little bit quicker than I should, because I wanted to talk about 5 more minutes. But that kind of concludes everything I wanted to show you today with X3 manufacturing. I'm going to open it up for questions, or have somebody open it up. I think there's a button we're supposed to push. So let's